Hello, and welcome to the User Research Strategist podcast. I am your host, Nikki, and I am joined here today by the wonderful Iwalola. Hi, Iwalola. How are you?
Hi, Nikki. What a great introduction. Your voice is so soothing.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Maybe I should go into like the AMS,
Yeah. Yeah.
new career path. Amazing. So today we're going to be talking actually about a wonderful topic, which is guiding product development and business strategy through customer feedback. And I can't wait to dive into this because anything business strategy is just chef's kiss, like what we need to be talking about. But before we do you mind just introducing yourself to the audience first?
Oh, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Iwalola Shobowale. You can just call me Iwa. I am the head of customer research at MoniePoint. MoniePoint is at a growth stage right now. MoniePoint is a financial services organization. Recently, at our recent evaluation, we are now a unicorn, which is great. I think everyone always loves to hear that. There are a limited number of unicorns right now in Nigeria. I'm based in Lagos, Nigeria, and I have been a researcher for about 6 years now. Been in financial services for most of the last 6 years. I started out in a bank, Fidelity Bank, and I think for most people who like get into the banking sector, it was really eye-opening for me. After Fidelity Bank was TransUnion. If you know anything about Africa, Nigeria, mobile technology is increasing, is growing at an increasing pace in Nigeria. So I was one of the researchers who helped develop technology for Infinix, Technos, any of those devices. And then from TransUnion went to InterSwitch. InterSwitch is also a unicorn, but InterSwitch has built the rails for a lot of like payment services in Nigeria and in Africa. And then from InterSwitch to MoniePoint now, and here I'm doing a lot of amazing work. We're at growth stage. It feels like this is where I've always wanted to be, and I'm happy to talk more about what we're doing here.
Amazing. And I'm going to shout this out because I know you do a lot of things outside of your role. Do you mind talking about those?
Oh, yes. A couple of things. So yes, I do also host a podcast. It's called the Spotlight Podcast, although we're kind of going through a name change and some other things. In there, we host people in like technology and business in Nigeria mostly. And we have these people who come and talk about the amazing things they're doing. The technology in Nigeria is booming, for lack of a better word. And there's so many people doing brilliant things. And it's just a space to talk about all of that, why they're doing what they're doing, what they've learned, what the challenges, and, what other people can do. So if you're interested in topics like that, then the podcast is for you. Nikki is so graceful, and she's going to be putting all the links in the show notes. Yeah. And then I'm also working on something else, which I'm sure will come up in the course of the conversation. It's called Usability for Africa. And essentially what we're trying to do is democratize knowledge about customers, about the market, research knowledge for anyone who's building anything for Africa. And it's going to be a book. We have a website. We're going to be releasing a couple of reports, and all of that will be happening towards the end of the year. We are currently doing a lot of the research, and we're going to have a lot of visuals and guides that we will be sharing publicly. So thank you so much for letting me share about that.
Of course, I was like, your roles and your actual career have been so amazing, but we got to talk about the other cool stuff that you're doing. So thank you so much for sharing that. As you mentioned, I will be putting all of that in the show notes with all of the links, and I totally get it. It's so hard to choose a podcast name. I feel like we shouldn't have to do that.
Yes.
It should just be like one day it's this, the next day it's that. But I guess
yeah,
it doesn't really line up with that. But yes, to get to our amazing topic today, because I am so excited, I kind of want to ask just an overall broad question of how do you define customer-centric product development and business strategy? Because that's a lot in there.
It's such a mouthful, and I think I've done the very Nigerian thing of like throwing words out there. If you talk with a lot of Nigerians, we do that a lot. So I guess there are like 3 key terms, right? Customer centricity, product development, and business strategy. Let me start from the back and then work my way back up. So business strategy, I took a course at INSEAD some years ago, and what I do know that stands out when it comes to business strategy, it's really what are we doing and what are we not doing? If anyone has read Good Strategy, Bad Strategy, that's essentially it. What are we doing? What are we not doing? There's so many opportunities, and especially right now in the world, in Nigeria, there's so many opportunities. You could be chasing like a 10-headed dog, right? If you wanted to do everything, but you just have to choose those one, two, three things that you have like the skills, you have the team for that you can do. So that's really business strategy. Product development. I mean, this do I need to define this? But basically, we're talking about what we're, based on what you've decided we're going to be doing. What are those things we need to develop to make sure that we're meeting those customer needs? And then customer centricity is, who are these customers? Like right now, I think everyone has so many questions, and this is kind of what we're doing in usability for Africa. There isn't so much data about Nigerians as a people, about what, when it comes to digital transformation or like technology use, right? There's a lot of external data. You could easily find data about the United States. How many people use XYZ in the United States? When it comes to Nigeria, like you have to guess or make an informed decision based on the information right? So customer centricity is, how do we make sure that we are solving the innate needs of our customers, even those ones they may not know that they have, and we're taking their feedback, we're actually acting on it. So I hope I've been able to define those terms clearly.
Yeah, amazing. That's perfect. And what I really want to talk about is I feel like a lot of user researchers have such a hard time bridging the gap between the customer centricity part, the user part of it, and the business strategy part. And so I'm wondering, in your experience, what are some ways that we can facilitate that connection between user and what we love to do, which is like talking to users and fixing their problems, with business needs and strategy?
Amazing question. And I know there's always this argument about top down or bottom up, but I'm usually of the case. I think of it this way. Everyone should be doing it. It's just like in a relationship. There isn't 50-50, it's 100-100. So from the bottom up, you're doing your 100. And from the top down, you're doing your 100 as well. So leadership, and even anyone at whatever role they are, has this responsibility. And it's the more, so for the leadership, it's they're communicating with the organization. This is what we're doing, this is what we're not doing, this is what we're focusing on, this is based on what we've learned, this is where we're going, right? And then from bottom up, it's okay, based on this, I've learned this, I have access to this information. So as a researcher myself, what I do is I expose everyone. Like, people are probably running away from me with the amount of information that I share. So I expose everyone, and I have a great manager. She is amazing. Her name is Camelia. She's the SVP of growth and marketing at MoniePoint. And she is just able to connect those like strategic decisions with what customers actually need. So I'm like the middle person who's putting all that together and sharing out all this information. So that's the way I look at it.
Do you want to get all of your user research questions answered, all while hanging out on your couch in sweatpants? No need to join any live webinars and hope that your question gets answered. No need to Google a million different things and sift through some scattered advice that you don't really know is valid or reliable. Not anymore. I know it sounds too good to be true, but I promise it isn't, because if you become a paid Substack subscriber, you get access immediately to a community filled with user researchers that I am in every single day answering questions. Not only can you hang out on your couch, feel less alone as a user researcher, and get all of your questions answered, not only by an expert, but by a bunch of other user researchers with amazing perspectives and experience. You can do all of that on your couch in sweatpants, and I will be alongside there with you every step of the way. So join my paid Substack, get immediate access, and we can relax together solving all of your user research problems. See you there.
And I'm curious, for researchers who might be nervous about doing stuff like that, because sometimes we can get shut down quite a lot, like, what are your strategies for sharing all of this information with everybody in an effective way?
Okay, so my answer would be I make friends with people. I try to make research that's welcoming place, where there's no like bad questions, there's no wrong questions. Come to us, we're happy to have a conversation. Like, a conversation can always be had, right? And like I said, I make friends with people. I mean, there's nothing worse than trying to like share information and then it kind of looks like no one wants that information, right? So I just make sure that it's a friendly place where that happens. But yeah, that's my basic answer. But I also want to add one more thing. So at my previous company, I mentioned InterSwitch, and there was a problem that we had, which is that people had been building for Africa, for Nigeria for years, and with like whatever information that they had. So by the time research came into the mix, it's like we already know what we're doing. We're like, what are you useful for, right? So I had this great feedback from our MD, CEO of Internet Switzerland, and he basically said, work with whoever already values you. Work with them, and by the time other teams are seeing the amount of impact, the amount of growth that this team that's working with you is having, you're selling yourself without having to sell yourself. They can see clearly the vision, right? So that's my answer, and the answer that I got from my previous boss.
I love that. Yeah, it's like find your allies, find the
Yes,
people who are like already like, okay, I understand this, instead of spending all of your time chasing and trying to prove that
yes,
value.
exactly.
I like that. I like that a lot. And I'm curious because this might be a weird question, but I feel like a lot of user researchers, myself included, especially early on in my career, I didn't know how to make friends with stakeholders because I kind of hated them. Do you have any tips for like relationship building, especially maybe with stakeholders who aren't 100% on your side?
I always just ask them questions. And I think maybe that's why I also said people are running away from me. So when I see that someone's not very open, I ask questions, and I make myself very interested in what they already know, how they got those answers. I actually believe that I'm one of those people who believe that anyone can do research.
Mm.
Not necessarily like, I mean, of course, there are processes and all that. I'm not saying user researchers are not valuable or valid, right? What I'm saying is anyone can do research. For instance, if you want to figure out what, maybe you want to change your phone, and you have some needs in mind that you want to make sure that this new phone device like meets those needs, right? You can do research. You can go online. Like everyone has that ability to now. So I make sure that I kind of put myself in their shoes, try and like learn all about all they've done, and like make them feel validated in what they've done. And then if I identify any gaps in, the processes they've developed, I can then bring it up, right? But then, like I said, I try to, like, to me, it's a friendly conversation. How can I help you? I'm so interested in what you learned. One thing I always do when I join a new organization is, I think everyone does this now, is basically I make the rounds. I go about introducing myself to everyone. I don't have any specific next step in mind or action plan in mind in this conversation. It's more like, this is where I've worked, this is what I do, this is what I'm hoping to do here, this is why I was hired. What do you do? Who are you? And all that. And it just sets like the basics for the next time you have a conversation. And you also, when you join a new organization, you kind of now know who to talk to if something comes up in this regard, or you need an answer to this question. Another thing that really helps is data. So a lot of the time, when you're sharing insights, there's also that kind of model of where it's almost like, is it like, how do, because people don't know what we really do. So it's like, how do you have these insights? But somehow people believe numbers.
Yeah.
So like I try to go with any numbers. So usually if there's like a data team, I'm always like best friends with data team. Any numbers that I know would be very useful or helpful for any of these stakeholders that they may or not already have access to. And I'm sharing it with them, and it's just like, oh, did you see this? I wonder if you like, what do you think about this? How do you think this changes things for you? Or is this something you've already known? And like, what are you guys doing with this data? So that also helps. And then it kind of establishes you as, okay, someone who kind of has answers or might know where to get answers, even if you don't have the answers.
Yeah, I love that. And I love in particular something that you said, which I found really interesting and important, is validating the stakeholder where they are. And I think that a lot of the times we can get really defensive as user researchers, and we can be like, but that's not good, or that's not the right way, or like this, that, and the other thing. But if you're on that person's side from the get-go, then they're more likely to be on your side. So I really love that point, especially about validating where they are, and then you can start recommending things.
I've learned a hard lesson about coming in too strong.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, so you kind of like, there's always at least one good thing they've done, just one.
Find that one thing that they've done right and be like, this is great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. I mean, I've yelled at people before, which is just not what you want to be doing.
Because there's no coming back from that. It's like, so where do we go from here?
Yeah, yeah. I'm very short too, so I imagine that my colleagues are like, those Instagram reels where people are like, "This is what my like boyfriend or my friend or my partner sees," and it's like I'm just sitting.
Yeah, I'm also height challenged. Yeah.
Oh dear. I'd love to switch over actually to the other side of things. And I love how you put this is guiding customer-centric product development, because I think that a lot of people can feel very reactive to
Mhm,
product development. Like instead of guiding it, we're reacting to like a request that's coming and
mhm.
trying our best to inject the customer centricity anywhere we can. But I'd love to hear a little bit about how you do this, the guiding of the
Mhm.
customer centric product development.
Yeah, that's an amazing question. And I would definitely say I've been on that reactive spectrum at some point. I've definitely been there. And I know how frustrating it can be for any researcher because it's like we want to do work that's impactful. No one wants to just be here answering requests and then you answer requests, you do all the work, and it's like, oh yeah, we've heard that before. And you're like, it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. For anyone who's not watching video, I basically mimed my head being blown off. Yeah. So yeah, it can be so annoying. So I totally understand. I can relate to that. And I would say one thing that's changed how that has been is, and I know I said, there's the top down who have their role to play, and there's the bottom up who have their role to play. But I think what's been really valuable for this to happen, where we are actually guiding product development, we're guiding business strategy, is from the top down. If your leadership is not looking at data in making decisions, senior managers, and the others, they're not going to be doing the same. They're not going to be doing that either. They're just going to be going off their own biases and whatever. So I really do think it's the responsibility of leadership to make sure that decisions are being made the right way. And that's not to say that every decision must be data backed. No. Sometimes you have to make some decisions without having so much information because you've been there, you kind of know certain things. You have to move fast at that point. But then when things are changing, when you're iterating, more information is coming in, you can do better, you can, improve your processes. So yes, I would say it's definitely a top-down thing. Although I wouldn't, that doesn't mean that from the bottom up, you don't have any role to play. It just means that, for instance, I mentioned how my manager, she's so amazing. Now, what makes her so amazing is she knows what people are thinking. So like the other team, she knows this is what this team is thinking. They're planning to do this, they're planning to do that. And she would reach out to me and say, okay, I think now is a good time for you to work on this. Share me this report you worked on like 5 months ago that no one's done anything with. And she makes sure that, the impact is there based on past data or any data that's currently accessible, any customer insights. A lot of the times it's even just, oh, we have some video recordings of, some interview that we did where a customer said XYZ. And we're just sharing that. And it answers questions that people have. So that's really how we kind of approach it. So when I say guiding, I mean we're not necessarily supporting, we're providing all the information that you would need to make a great decision that will make you comfortable and confident as a leader, as a product manager. When you're making a decision, you don't have to think, oh my God, what if XYZ happens? Or it's like, we're providing you this information and you do with it what you can.
Hey everyone, I have been taking some business courses recently and am launching a new membership that's all about how user researchers can become more business savvy, more strategic, and more of a business partner in their organizations. One of the biggest questions that I get asked is, hey, my organization isn't really mature. It has like a low user research maturity level. Please do not let the maturity of your organization dictate your user research career. That's what I did because I was in a lower user research maturity, I kind of let myself stagnate and I didn't really learn new things. And with that, my skills kind of like deteriorated. I lost a lot of time that I could have used to learn really, really important skills because they weren't necessarily applicable to my organization at that time. But guess what? I got fired. And then it didn't really matter what maturity level my organization was at because I was no longer there. And I wished that I had taken the time to learn some of these skills because they would have been applicable at the next places that I went into. I know that it can be hard sometimes and frustrating when you're in a low maturity organization and you want to push things, you want to learn new things, but please, please, please don't let your current organization and their levels of maturity impact your future career, because I promise you, you will not be there forever and you will need the skills that you need to learn in the future. Promise, 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 especially with the user research industry changing and us hopefully moving into that more strategic space and operating more as business partners and innovation partners to our organizations. Also, if you want more details on my membership and how to become a little bit more business oriented as a researcher, check out the link that I have. And I hope that helps.
I love what you said about, especially, okay, we are guiding them to make a better decision. But in order for you to do that, you need to know what decisions they're trying to make.
Yes.
And I love how you brought up like your manager having the knowledge of, oh, this team's working on this, these teams working on this. Why don't you pull this report for this team who might have these questions and da 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 da. Like that kind of scope of understanding, I feel like, is really important. I'm curious from your experience, how is it that you go about understanding what kind of decisions people are making so that you can provide them with that information?
Oh, Lord. That's a hard question.
Yeah.
So I think it's something I personally am still learning, but I think a lot of it has to do with being in the room when these decisions are being made. But another great thing is the documentation. So I read a lot of documentation and a lot of teams that are documenting things in various places, right? So I might just reach out to someone and say, oh, could you please share me, the documentation for what you plan to do for the next XYZ months? What's your roadmap like? Things like that, right? Yeah. Or it could just be the meeting notes from a meeting I know that the senior leadership had. And I'm reading through that. It's information that's available to everyone, right? From that, I'm able to share, oh, I actually have some insights around XYZ that people had questions about. Or it could just be the 15 minutes that I have with the CEO. I've asked him so many questions. I've taken notes and I kind of know, okay, this leader is working on this person is working on that. I don't think I have the perfect answer to that yet. And maybe if you had like any like senior leadership or like CEO or something on your podcast, you could probably ask them that question. But yeah, for me, it's really reading as much documentation as I can, trying to put myself in the right conversations, and then asking a lot of questions in those like 5 to 10 minutes that I have with anyone I know would have like valuable answers for me.
I love that. And I think as researchers, sometimes we forget that we have to research our own stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You have to research your organization. Yes.
Yeah, because you just sitting there and saying, oh, well, reaching out to this person, share this documentation of what you're going to do, and then share this documentation, try and have this conversation and ask these questions. We focus our research so much on the external that we forget about that whole, it's like we forget that we're researchers when it comes to internal work.
Yeah. I can actually relate. And it's a gap I know I had earlier on in my career. And I think maybe just as you grow and maybe get more experience, that becomes clearer to you that you actually have to research your organization, your stakeholders. Otherwise, your work is not going to match up with, what they're trying to do. Either you'll be too late or too early, although I don't really think there's anything like too early when it comes to insights, right? But mostly if you're too late, then you've just missed that chance. Although, yes, of course, at the point of iterating or improving, you can always still, come in. But if you miss that chance early on, it's kind of hard to keep up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like that when you said things like, oh, they have these questions and we're going to provide this information. That's so proactive, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like a lot of people feel like they need to wait for a request rather than doing that research and finding it and then going to deliver. And I know that we always have so much work to do, so it might be hard to find the time, but carving out that time to do that internal research and then proactively provide that information is a game changer.
Yeah. So really just plugging in. If you use Slack, just be in every channel. Don't get overwhelmed. But be in every channel where important decisions or questions are being asked. And something that could help is, creating a channel, for instance, where anyone who has questions in your organization can just come in, ask questions. If you have answers to that to share, If you find any valuable secondary research online on the internet, you share. If you find any data from, I don't know, PwC or wherever, whoever's done that research, you share. And people just find, they start to get to know you as this resourceful person who either has the information or knows where to get the information. And then when you actually have to do maybe the reactive work, you see that even then your reactive work has so much more impact than, you know, what you could have even imagined.
That's like such a great tip. You know, create that Slack channel or create that channel that people can come to just, it's like casual, but effective.
Yeah. Another thing that I found helpful is we use like Google Workspace. So I probably will be referencing that a lot. So we just have like a Google Sheet where we call them like esoteric questions. So just questions generally that people have asked that kind of sparked that interest in you. But you know that, oh, we have just 2 people on our team. There's no way we can take this on right now. But it's there. And at any point when you're doing maybe any kind of continuous discovery or any like user interviews or anything, and you're going back and you're looking at it like, oh yeah, these are like a great set of people for me to ask these questions. Not like you don't waste resources, you don't waste time. Like you are able to then plug it in. Yes, or I know I talked about how it might be too late, but for things like that, even if it's too late, like I said, maybe they had that question at the time and it's like 2 months later, they probably had to make a decision 2 months ago, but then you're providing more information at that point. It's still better than nothing.
Yeah. And there's always version 2 of things. There's always version 3. There's always version 4, 5, you know? And so like you providing, even if it's late, you providing information can sometimes help with the next iteration or spark the interest to do another iteration because it's necessary.
That is so true. That's so true. So they might have seen the version 1 and kind of, they can't pinpoint what's gone wrong or like what the gaps are in the version 1, or maybe they have seen there's some issues and like the product manager are trying to like do their own research and all that, and you just come at the perfect time. It's like manna sent from heaven, and you're like, here you go. Like, do you know how much of a lifesaver you would be for that product manager or for that team?
I love that. Yeah, that's so fantastic. And one of my last questions is, because you already gave such an amazing, well, quite a few tips in there. Do you have any like favorite questions, maybe 1 or 2 favorite questions if you're in front of the CEO or a stakeholder for those 5 or 10 minutes that you ask them to get information from them?
I don't think I have any specific questions that maybe I've written down, rehearsed somewhere, but I usually just ask them, like, I'd like to know more about why this decision is being made. And I don't think that people ask leadership why so much. It's almost like, okay, we're doing this. And they're like, oh, great, we're going ahead to do this. I usually ask why. And I think the first time I do that for anyone, they're always like, like, it's always like, this is probably their first time being asked that why. But it's almost like I always explain it this way, that the why helps me understand, you know, what's the thought process behind that decision. It also helps me know how I can come in, because if I know why this is being done, if I know, okay, maybe perhaps it's being done just to keep customers happy, it's just a nice to have, right? We saw that we had a lot of requests from customers about this. We know it's not going to move the needle in terms of, I don't know, our numbers, like our profits or anything, but we're doing this because we know loyalty is going to increase. That's a great why. And for me, it also helps me guide any research I'm going to do going forward from that, right? So yes, I think it's just the why questions that I ask. I don't think leadership are used to being asked why though. So kind of know the temperament of your leadership when you're going in with that question. Yeah. I mean, so aside from like my 9 to 5, I remember like very funny conversation I had with like a product manager I was working on a project with. And I remember that I kept asking why. At some point, I realized she got frustrated and I just wanted to know why. Right? So I can imagine how frustrating that can be. But I think just kind of understand the temperament of the person and you understand why you're asking. And when you're asking, you're probably letting them know how it's going to help you to understand the why.
You are telling them why you are asking them why.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, I'm just realizing how annoying I must be as a researcher.
Me too. Honestly, I'm like, why? I'm a 4-year-old. I am a 4-year-old, or the Backstreet Boys, right? Like,
as someone who has a 4-year-old, actually, this is sinking in. Oh my Lord.
Oh my goodness. Well, Iwalola, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This has been such a fun conversation, and you've shared so much valuable information and so many tips. I love that Slack channel. Like that is like, oh,
I cannot believe it's been 30 minutes already.
I know it goes by so fast, doesn't it? It's just unreal.
So
But
I think it's also a commendation of you as a host.
oh,
As a podcast host myself, there are always like some like lulls in the conversation with me, and I think I probably need to improve on that. I didn't feel any of that here, so amazing. Thank you.
amazing. Well, thank you so, so much for coming on the pod. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much to the audience for watching, listening today. Please subscribe to hear more. I have to say that I'm still working on my ending. It's been like a few years, and I'm like, I don't know what to say. So we're just going to end it there. Thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.